Hello, everyone. Good Tuesday evening. Welcome to Divine Femininity United, soon to be changed to a whole other name. We're rebranding, y'all. We got to rebrand. You know why? Because it's not just Divine Feminine that comes to our spaces. Now, when I initially, at the very genesis of this collective, which was in 2020, you all, it was exclusively catered to women. Yes, it was. I have to say, yes, it was. However, we had a whole lot of men that wanted to enter our collective. And of course, we are not going to shun them. I mean, because inside of divine masculine, there is divine feminine, whether they like to admit it or not. Whether they like to admit it or not, there is divine feminine. There is the divine duality, okay? Which I'm moving more toward non-duality, which is just simply beingness, oneness. That's it. That's all. No labels. Aren't y'all tired of labels and categories and all of the foolishness? I know. But in any case, without going off into a tangent, today is Tuesday evening, and we are going to read two more chapters of our collective reading, which has been absolutely phenomenal. A Wrinkle in Time, written by Lingle. Madeline Lingle. Y'all, I've been having so much fun with this book. Oh my God. My inner child has been loving on me. My inner child has been thanking me profusely, and I have been giving her all the hugs and all the loves because not only does my inner child love it, but I do too. It is really appealing to all of my gifts, who I am, all of the spirituality, all of the crazy talk of the outer dimensions and other worlds and all of the stuff, y'all. I'm here for it. I am right at home in this book. You hear me? Right at home. And it's so amazing. It's so imaginative, right? So it speaks to the right brain. Definitely speaks to the right brain. It is perfect for this time that we're in. We're in the age of Aquarius. We're also in the season of Aquarius. We got so many planets and transits in Aquarius right now. And Aquarius being the sign of the weirdos. Okay. I love a good Aquarian. I do. We're compatible. Okay. Aquarians and Libras. I'm not even gonna get into my business. Y'all so nosy. About to get into about to have me spill all the tea. We not even about to get into the thing. So y'all could be all up in my business. No, no, no. Just know that Aquarians and Libras are quite compatible in terms of we're all air. We're both air. Okay. So we get each other's mental space, right? Our superpowers reside in our mental thinking brain. We're the brainies, the brainiacs, we're the nerds of the bunch, okay? Which I love. So are Geminis, okay? Now, but the one special thing about, or the several special things about Aquarians is the fact that they are the techies. They are the ones that are really they dive deep into the science of it all, technology, the deep it would be like the what do you call the conspiracy theorist and all that. Listen, they live for all of that good stuff. They're also the sign of the people, collectiveness, liberation, freedom. And so this book right now speaks of, it's perfect that we're, everything is definitely in a perfect timing, and it's perfect that we're reading this book for this time. I love it, y'all. I absolutely love it. Hey, Kim. Welcome, my love. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Said, hey, Doc. Hope all is well. Everything is amazing. I hope all is well with you as well. Thank you for being here. Thank you so much for being here. I love to see y'all. Come on in. We are airing on several different platforms. You all already know how we do. The OG Triple OG is Clubhouse. We're always on Clubhouse. Definitely there right now. So, but the only thing is on Clubhouse it's Audible only, right? I'm quite sure with as many updates that they do updates 20 a day. Okay. So eventually they're going to come through with the cameras. I can guarantee you that. I swear they're working on it. But Clubhouse is the OG Triple OG. That's where Divine Femininity got started. But then now we're all on several different platforms. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube. We're on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. We're everywhere. And I love everybody from every platform, wherever you're tuning in from. I thank you for being here. Thank you for your energy, your presence, all of the things. Now, as you all know, on Tuesday, I do not like to keep you long because it is on the East Coast, it's after 8 o'clock, right? We start at 8 o'clock p.m. And so I don't like to keep you long because I know you got to get ready for tomorrow. You got to spend time with your family, your kids, even if you just got to sit and take a bubble bath with a glass of wine and a candle on your own. I don't want to be in that bath with you. I'm just saying, I want you to have your good time, your energy, your space by yourself. So I'm not going to keep you long. So without further ado, I want to go ahead and get started with chapters 10 and 11. Chapter 10 being absolute zero. Chapter 11 being Aunt Beast. Okay. At any point in our reading, I want you to go ahead and use the chat, just like Miss Kim did. Use the chat, say how you feel. If something sticks out to you, definitely let us know. I will give voice to your words. Okay. If not, if you want to just hear me like a great narrator that I am, hello, come on, tooting your own horn. If I don't, who will? Hello, somebody. All right. So if you something stick out to you, you want to say something about it, put it in the chat. Okay. Put it in the comments and I will read it for you. But if not, I'm going to go ahead and just read. And you all can just hear me as you listen to your wonderful Audible books, okay? Alrighty. So here we go. Without further ado, this is A Wrinkle in Time, Chapter 10, Absolute Zero. The first sign of returning consciousness was cold, then sound. She was aware of voices that seemed to be traveling through her across an Arctic waste. Slowly, the ice sounds cleared, and she realized that the voices belonged to her father and Calvin. She did not hear Charles Wallace. She tried to open her eyes, but the lids would not move. She tried to sit up, but she could not stir. She struggled to turn over, to move her hands, her feet, but nothing happened. She knew that she had a body, but it was as lifeless as marble. She heard Calvin's frozen voice. Her heart is beating so slowly. Her father's voice, but it's beating. She's alive. Barely. We couldn't find a heartbeat at all at first. We thought she was dead. Yes. And then we can feel her heart very faintly. The beats very far apart. And then it got stronger. So all we have to do is wait. Her father's words sounded brittle in her ears, as though they were being chipped out of ice. Calvin, yes, you're right, sir. She wanted to call out to them. I'm alive. I'm very much alive. Only I've been turned to stone. But she could not call out any more than she could move. Calvin's voice again. Anyhow, you got her away from it. You got us both away, and we couldn't have gone on holding out. It's so much more powerful and strong than how do we stay out, sir? How did we manage as long as we did? Her father. Because it's completely unused to being refused. That's the only reason I could keep from being absorbed too. No mind has tried to hold out against it for so many thousands of centuries that certain centers have become soft and atrophied through lack of use. If you hadn't come to me when you did, I'm not sure how much longer I would have lasted. I was on the point of giving in. Calvin. Oh, no, sir. Her father. Yes, nothing seemed important anymore but rest. And of course, it offered me complete rest. I had almost come to the conclusion that I was wrong to fight, that it was right after all. And everything I believed in most passionately was nothing but a madman's dream. But then you and Meg came into me, broke through my prison, and hope and faith returned. Calvin. Sir, why were you on Kamazat's at all? Was there a particular reason for going there? Her father with a frigid laugh. Going to Kamazat's was a complete accident. I never intended ever to leave our own solar system. I was heading for Mars. Tessering is even more complicated than we had expected. Calvin. Sir, how was it able to get Charles Wallace before it got Meg and me? Her father. From what you told me, it's because Charles Wallace thought he could deliberately go into it and return. He trusted too much to his own strength. Listen, I think the heartbeat is getting stronger. His words no longer sounded to her quite as frozen. Was it his words that were ice or her ears? Why did she hear only her father and Calvin? Why didn't Charles Wallace speak? Silence. A long silence. Then Calvin's voice again. Can't we do anything? Can't we look for help? Do we just have to go on waiting? Her father. We can't leave her, and we must stay together. We must not be afraid to take time. Calvin. You mean we were rushed into things on Kamazat too fast, and Charles Wallace rushed in too fast, and that's why he got caught? Maybe. I'm not sure. I don't know enough yet. Time is different on Kamazats anyhow. Our time inadequate though it is, at least it's straightforward. It may not be even fully one-dimensional because it can't move back or forward on its line, only ahead. But at least it's consistent in its direction. Time on Kamazats seems to be inverted, turned in on itself. So I have no idea whether I was imprisoned in that column for centuries or only for minutes. Silence for a moment. Then her father's voice again. I think I feel a pulse in her wrist now. Meg could not feel his fingers against her wrist. She could not feel her wrist at all. Her body was still stone, but her mind was beginning to be capable of movement. She tried desperately to make some kind of sound, a signal to them, but nothing happened. Their voices started again. Calvin. About your project, sir. Were you on it alone? Her father. Oh, no. There were half a dozen of us working on it, and I dare say a number of others we don't know about. Certainly, we weren't the only nation to investigate along that line. It's time really a new idea. It's not really a new idea, but we did try very hard not to let it be known abroad that we were trying to make it practicable. Did you come to Kamazat alone, or were there others with you? I came alone. You see, Calvin, there was no way to try it out ahead with rats or monkeys or dogs. And we had no idea whether it would really work or whether it would be a complete bodily disintegration. Playing with time and space is a dangerous game. But why you, sir? I wasn't the first. We drew straws, and I was second. What happened to the first man? We don't. Look, did her eyelids move? Silence. Then, no, it was only a shadow. But I did blink, Meg tried to tell them. I'm sure I did. And I can hear you. Do something. But there was only another long silence, during which perhaps they were looking at her, watching for another shadow, another flicker. Then she heard her father's voice again, quiet, a little warmer, more like his own voice. We drew straws, and I was second. We know Hank went. We saw him go. We saw him vanish right in front of the rest of us. He was there and then he wasn't. We were to wait for a year for his return or for some message. We waited. Nothing. Calvin, his voice cracking. Jeepers, sir. You must have been in sort of a flap. Her father. Yes. It's a frightening as well as an exciting thing to discover that matter and energy are the same thing. That size is an illusion and that time is a material substance. We can know this, but it's far more than we can understand with our puny little brains. I think you will be able to comprehend far more than I, and Charles Wallace even more than you. Yes, but what happened, please, sir, after this first man? Meg could hear her father sigh. Then it was my turn. I went, and here I am, a wiser and a humbler man. I'm sure I haven't been gone 2 years. Now that you've come, I have some hope that I may be able to return in time. One thing I have to tell the others is that we know nothing. Calvin, what do you mean, sir? Her father, just what I say. We're children playing with dynamite. In our mad rush, we've plunged into this before. The desperate effort made a sound. It wasn't a very loud sound, but it was a sound. Mr. Murry stopped. Hush, listen. Meg made a strange croaking noise. She found that she could pull open her eyelids. They felt heavier than marble, but she managed to raise them. Her father and Calvin were hovering over her. She did not see Charles Wallace. Where was he? She was lying in an open field of what looked like rusty, stubby grass. She blinked slowly, and with difficulty. Meg, her father said, Meg, are you all right? Her tongue felt like a stone tongue in her mouth, but she managed to croak. I can't move. Try, Calvin urged. He sounded now as though he were very angry with her. Wiggle your toes, wiggle your fingers. I can't. Where's Charles Wallace? Her words were blunted by the stone tongue. Perhaps they could not understand her, for there was no answer. We were knocked out for a minute, too, Calvin was saying. You'll be all right, Meg. Don't get panicky. He was crouched over her, and though his voice continued to sound cross, he was peering at her with anxious eyes. She knew that she must still have her glasses on because she could see him clearly, his freckles, his stubby black lashes, the bright blue of his eyes. Her father was kneeling on her other side. The round lenses of Mrs. Hu's glasses still blurred his eyes. He took one of her hands and rubbed it between his. Can you feel my fingers? He sounded quite calm, as though there was nothing extraordinary in having her completely paralyzed. At the quiet of his voice, she felt calmer. Then she saw that there were great drops of sweat standing out on his forehead, and she noticed vaguely that the gentle breeze that touched her cheeks was cool. At first, his words had been frozen, and now the wind was mild. Was it icy cold here, or warm? Can you feel my fingers? He asked again. Yes, now she could feel a pressure against her wrist, but she could not nod. Where's Charles Wallace? Her words were a little less blurred. Her tongue, her lips were beginning to feel cold and numb, as though she had been given a massive dose of Novocaine at the dentist. She realized with a start that her body and limbs were cold, that not only was she not warm, she was frozen from head to toe. And it was this that had made her father's words seem like ice, that had paralyzed her. I'm frozen, she said faintly. Kamazat's hadn't been this cold, a cold that cut deeper than the wind on the bitterest of winter days at home. She was away from it, but this unexplained iciness was almost as bad. Her father had not saved her. Now she was able to look around a little, and everything she could see was rusty and gray. There were trees edging the field in which she lay, and their leaves were the same brown as the grass. There were plants that might have been flowers, except that they were dull and gray. In contrast to the drabness of color, to the color that numbed her, the air was filled with a delicate spring-like fragrance, almost imperceptible to the as it blew softly against her face. She looked at her father and Calvin. They were both in their shirt sleeves, and they looked perfectly comfortable. It was she, wrapped in their clothes. She was frozen too solid even to shiver. Why am I cold? She asked. Where's Charles Wallace? They did not answer. Father, where are we? Mr. Murry looked at her soberly. I don't know, Meg. I don't test her very well. I must have overshot somehow. We're not on Kamazat's. I don't know where we are. I think you're so cold because we went through the black thing, and I thought for a moment it was going to tear you away from me. Is this a dark planet? Slowly her tongue was beginning to thaw. Her words were less blurred. I don't think so, Mr. Murry said, but I know so little about anything that I can't be sure. You shouldn't have tried to test her then. She had never spoken to her father in this way before. The words seemed hardly to be hers. Calvin looked at her, shaking his head. It was the only thing to do. At least it got us off Kamazat's. Why did we go without Charles Wallace? Why did we just leave him there? The words that were not really hers came out cold and accusing. We didn't just leave him, her father said. Remember that the human brain is a very delicate organism, and it can be easily damaged. See, Meg, Calvin crouched over her, tense and worried. If your father had tried to yank Charles away, then when he tested us, and if it had kept grabbing hold of Charles, it might have been too much for him, and we'd have lost him forever. And we had to do something right then. Why? It was taking us. You and I were slipping, and if your father had gone on trying to help us, he wouldn't have been able to hold out much longer either. You told me to test her, you told him to test her, Meg Charles Calvin. There isn't any question of blame, Mr. Murry cut in severely. Can you move yet? All Meg's faults were uppermost in her now, and they were no longer helping her. No, and you'd better take me back to Kamazat's and Charles Wallace quickly. You're supposed to be able to help. Disappointment was as dark and corrosive in her as the black thing. The ugly words tumbled from her cold lips, even as she herself could not believe that it was her. It was to her father, her beloved, longed for father, that she was talking to in this way. If her tears had not still been frozen, they would have been gushing from her eyes. She had found her father and had not made everything aright. Everything kept getting worse and worse. If the long search for her father was ended and he wasn't able to overcome all their difficulties, there was nothing to guarantee that it would all come out right in the end. There was nothing left to hope for. She was frozen, and Charles Wallace is being devoured by it, and her omnipotent father was doing nothing. She teetered on the seesaw of love and hate, and the black thing pushed her down into hate. You don't even know where we are, she cried out to her father. We'll never see mother or the twins again. We don't know where Earth is, or even where Kamazat's is. We're lost out in space. What are you going to do? She did not realize that she was as much in the power of the black thing as Charles Wallace. Mr. Murry bent over her, massaging her cold fingers. She could not see his face. My daughter, I am not as Mrs. Whatsit, a Mrs. Who, or a Mrs. Which. Yes, Calvin has told me everything he could. I am a human being, and a very fallible one. But I agree with Calvin. We were sent here for something, and we know all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are called according to his purpose. The black thing, Meg cried out at him. Why did you let it almost get me? You've never tested as well as the rest of us, Calvin reminded her. It never bothered Charles and me as much as it did you. He shouldn't have taken me then, Meg said, until he learned to do it better. Neither her father nor Calvin spoke. Her father continued his gentle massage. His fingers came back to her fingers came back to life with tingling pain. You're hurting me. Then you're feeling again, her father said quietly. I'm afraid it is going to hurt, Meg. The piercing pain moved slowly up her arms, again in her toes and legs. She started to cry out against her father when Calvin explained. Look! Coming towards them, moving in silence across the brown grass, were three figures. What were they? On Uriel, there had been the magnificent creatures. On Kamazat's, the inhabitants had at least resembled people. What were these three strange things approaching? They were the same dull gray color as the flowers. If they hadn't walked upright, they would have seemed like animals. They moved directly toward the three human beings. They had 4 legs and far more than 5 fingers to each hand, and the fingers were not fingers, but long waving tentacles. They had heads and they had faces, but where were the faces of the creatures on Uriel had seemed far more than human faces. These seemed far less. Where the features would normally be, there were several indentations, and in place of ears and hair were more tentacles. They were tall. Meg realized as they came closer, far taller than any man. They had no eyes, just soft indentations. Meg's rigid, frozen body tried to shudder with terror, but instead of the shudder, all that came was pain. She moaned. The things stood over them. They appeared to be looking down at them, except that they had no eyes with which to see. Mr. Murry continued to kneel by Meg, massaging her. He's killing us, bringing us here, Meg thought. I'll never see Charles Wallace again, or mother, or the twins. Calvin rose to his feet. He bowed to the beast as though they could see him. He said, How do you do, sir? Ma'am. Who are you? The tallest of the beasts said. His voice was neither hostile nor welcoming, and it came from the mouth-like indentation in the furry face, but from the waving tentacles. They'll eat us, Meg thought wildly. They're making me hurt. My toes, my fingers, I hurt. Calvin answered the beast's question. We're we're from Earth. I'm not sure how we got here. We've had an accident. Meg, this girl is paralyzed. She can't move. She's terribly cold. We think that's why she can't move. One of them came up to Meg and squatted down on its huge hunches beside her, and she felt utter loathing and revulsion as it reached out a tentacle to touch her face. But the tentacle came the same delicate fragrance that moved across her with the breeze, and she felt a soft, tingling warmth go all through her that momentarily assuaged her pain. She felt suddenly sleepy. I must look as strange to it as it looks to me, she thought drowsily, and then realized with a shock that, of course, the beast couldn't see her at all. Nevertheless, a reassuring sense of safety flowed through her with the warmth which continued to seep deep into her as the beast touched her. Then it picked her up, cradling her in two of its forearms. Mr. Murry stood up quickly. What are you doing? Taking the child. Ooh. Wow. Oh my goodness. Okay, the tentacle. This is something. Listen, y'all. I'm. First of all, I love the fact that the Father said, "All things work together for the good of those who love God." Listen. So, regardless of the venom that he was spewing, and notice that she keeps saying the black thing. So, the black thing is indicative of evil. Okay, and so when they passed through, as they were tessering in our language, that's quantum leaping. Okay, so jumping from one dimension to the next, right? So they tessered, and it through in the tessering, they went through the black thing, the evil cloud, and she, because she doesn't have any special abilities like Calvin or Charles Wallace, they both are clairvoyant, they are perceptive, they are seers, what we would call oracles and those things, they have premonitions and whatnot. Charles Wallace being more gifted, he at 5 years old. So, um, with her being a human without any gifts and things like that, when she went through the black thing, she took on the black thing's energy because she wasn't, her gifts are not as developed as the others, right? And honestly, that's kind of what happens when we are out of alignment of our true spiritual nature that has all of the spiritual gifts and things like that. We are susceptible to the evil that's in the environment, and we can, we're susceptible to be taken over. And so she herself was taken over, so much so to the point where she's snapping at her dad and she's being very disrespectful. Little girl, gather yourself. But notice the father is not reacting. He understands. He understands. He's oh, turn away wrath with a soft answer. He's giving her soft answers, which is, it should be, turn it's softened, warming her wrath. It's calming her down. It should be calming her down. He's not reacted to her. Love that for all of us. These are messages. This is what I'm saying. Like, you got to let your inner child hear the story, right, and be as imaginative and kooky as the book. But you got to let your adult self, your present self, pick up them jewels that's being dropped. Okay. All right. Here we go. Chapter 11. Aunt Beast. No, Mr. Murry said sharply. Please put her down. A sense of amusement seemed to emanate from the beast. The tallest, who seemed to be the spokesman, said, "We frighten you? What are you going to do with us?" Mr. Murry asked. The beast said, "I'm sorry. We communicate better with the other one." He turned he turned toward Calvin. "Who are you?" "I'm Calvin O'Keefe." "What's that?" "I'm a boy, a young man." "You too are afraid?" "I'm not sure." "Tell me," the beast said, "what do you suppose you'd do if three of us suddenly arrived on your home planet?" Whoa, come on with it. I like these. And they said, shoot you, I guess, Calvin admitted. "Then isn't that what we should do with you?" Calvin's freckles seemed to deepen, but he answered quietly, "I'd really rather you didn't. I mean, the Earth's my home, but I'd rather be there than anywhere in the world. I mean, the universe. and I can't wait to get back. But we make some awful bloopers there. That's a man. Okay, the smallest beast, the one holding Meg, said, and perhaps they aren't used to visitors from other planets. Man, used to it, Calvin explained. We've never had any, as far as I know. Why? I don't know. The middle beast, a tremor of trepidation in his words, said, you aren't from a dark planet, are you? No, Calvin shook his head firmly, though the beast couldn't see him. We're shadowed, but we're fighting the shadow. The beast holding Meg questioned, you three are fighting? Yes, Calvin answered, now that we know about it. The tall one turned back to Mr. Murry, speaking sternly. You, the oldest man, from where have you come? Now, Mr. Murry answered steadily, from a planet called Kamazats. There was a mutter from the three beasts. We do not belong there, Mr. Murry said, slowly and distinctly. We were strangers there as we are here. I was a prisoner there, and these children rescued me. My youngest son, my baby, is still there, trapped in the dark mind of it. Meg tried to twist around in the beast's arms to glare at her father and Calvin. Why were they being so frank? Weren't they afraid of the danger? But again, her anger dissolved as the gentle warmth from the tentacles flowed through her. She realized that she could move her fingers and toes with comparative freedom, and the pain was no longer so acute. We must take this child back with us, the beast holding her said. Meg shouted at her father, don't leave me the way you left Charles. With this burst of terror, a spasm of pain racked her body and she gasped. Stop fighting, the beast told her. You make it worse. Relax. That's what it said, Meg cried. Father, Calvin, help. The beast turned toward Calvin and Mr. Murry. This child is in danger. You must trust us. We have no alternative, Mr. Murry said. Can you save her? I think so. May I stay with her? No, but you will not be far away. We feel that you are hungry, tired, that you would like to bathe and rest. And this little, what is the word? The beast cocked its tentacles at Calvin. Girl, Calvin said. This little girl needs prompt and special care. The coldness of the, what is it you call it? The black thing? The black thing, yes. The black thing burns unless it is counteracted properly. The three beasts stood around Meg, and it seemed that they were feeling into her with their softly waving tentacles. The movement of the tentacles was as rhythmic and flowing as the dance of an undersea plant. And lying there, cradled in the four strange arms, Meg, despite herself, felt a sense of security that was deeper than anything she had known since the days when she lay in her mother's arms in the old rocking chair and was sung to sleep. With her father's help, she had been able to resist it. Now she could hold out no longer. She leaned her head against the beast's chest and realized that the gray body was covered with the softest, most delicate fur imaginable, and the fur had the same beautiful odor as the air. I hope I don't smell awful to it, she thought. But then she knew with a deep sense of comfort that even if she did smell awful, the beast would forgive her. As a tall figure cradled her, she could feel the frigid stiffness of her body relaxing against it. This bliss could not come to her from a thing like it. It could only give pain, never relieve it. The beast must be good. They had to be good. She sighed deeply, like a very small child, and suddenly she was asleep. When she came to herself again, there was in the back of her mind a memory of pain, of agonizing pain. But the pain was over now, and her body was lapped in comfort. She was lying on something wonderfully soft in an enclosed chamber. It was dark. All she could see was occasional tall, moving shadows, which she realized were beasts walking about. She had been stripped of her clothes, and something warm and pungent was gently being rubbed into her body. She sighed and stretched and discovered that she could stretch. She could move again. She was no longer paralyzed, and her body was bathed in waves of warmth. Her father had not saved her. The beast had. So you are awake, little one. The words came gently to her ears. What a funny little tadpole you are. Is the pain gone now? All gone. Are you warm and alive again? Yes, I'm fine. She struggled to sit up. No, lie still, small one. You must not exert yourself as yet. We will have a fur garment for you in a moment, and then we will feed you. You must not even try to feed yourself. You must be as an infant again. The black thing does not relinquish its victims willingly. Where are Father and Calvin? Have they gone back for Charles Wallace? They are eating and resting, the beast said, and we are trying to learn about each other and see what is best to help you. We feel now that you are not dangerous, that we will be allowed to help you. Why is it so dark in here? Meg asked. She tried to look around, but all she could see was shadows. Nevertheless, there was a sense of openness, a feel of a gentle breeze moving lightly about that kept the darkness from being oppressive. Perplexity came to her from the beast. What is this dark? What is this light? We do not understand. Your father and the boy, Calvin, have asked this too. They say that it is night now on our planet and that they cannot see. They have told us that our atmosphere is what they call opaque, so that the stars is not visible. And then they were surprised that we know stars, that we know their music and the movements of their dance far better than beings like you who spend hours studying them through what you call telescopes. We do not understand what this means to see. Well, it's what things look like, Meg said helplessly. We do not know what things look like, as you say, the beast said. We know what things are like. My God. Ooh, my goodness. Okay. Ooh, my Lord. It must be a very limiting thing, this seeing. Yes, sir. Ooh, I have a saying all the time where I say, your sight can hinder your vision. My goodness. Ooh, we y'all. Okay, she says, "Oh no," Meg cried. It's the most wonderful thing in the world. What a very strange world yours must be," the beast said. "That such a peculiar seeming thing should be of such importance. Try to tell me, what is this thing called light that you're able to do so little without?" "Well, we can't see without it," Meg said, realizing that she was completely unable to explain vision and light and dark. How can you explain sight on a world where no one has ever seen and where there's no need of eyes? "Well, on this planet," she fumbled, "you have a sun, don't you? A most wonderful sun from which comes our warmth and the rays which gives us our flowers, our food, our music, and all the things which make life grow." "Well," Meg said, "when we are turned toward the sun, our earth, our planet, I mean, toward our sun, we realize it's light. And when we're turned away from it, it is night. And if we want to see, we have to use artificial lights." "Artificial lights?" the bee sighed. "How very complicated life on your planet must be. Later on, later on, you must try to explain some more to me." "All right," Meg promised. And yet she knew that to try to explain something that could be seen with the eyes would be impossible because the beast, in some ways, saw, knew, understood far more completely than she and her parents or Calvin or even Charles Wallace. Come on, man. Mm. "Charles Wallace," she cried. "What are they doing about Charles Wallace? We don't know what it's doing to him or making him do. Please, oh, please help us." "Yes, yes, little one, of course, we will help you. A meeting is in session right now to study what is best to do. We have never before been able to talk to anyone who has managed to escape from a dark planet. So, although your father is blaming himself for everything that has happened, we feel that he must be quite an extraordinary person to get out of Kamazats with you at all. But the little boy and I understand that he is a very special, a very important little boy. Ah, my child, you must accept that this will not be easy. To go back through the black thing, back to Kamazats. I don't know. I don't know." "But father left him," Meg said. "He's got to bring him back. We can't just abandon Charles Wallace." The beast's communication suddenly became crisp. Nobody said anything about abandoning anybody. This is not our way. But we know that just because we want something does not mean that we will get what we want. And we still do not know what to do. And we cannot allow you in your present state to do anything that would jeopardize us all. I can see that you wish your father to go rushing back to Kamazat, and you could probably make him do this. And then where would we be? No, no, you must wait until you are more calm. Now, my darling, here's a robe for you to keep you warm and comfortable. Meg felt herself being lifted again, and a soft, light garment was slipped about her. Don't worry about your little brother. The tentacle's musical words were soft against her. We would never leave him behind the shadow. But for now, you must relax. You must be happy. You must get well. Notice the parallel between happiness and wellness. Ooh, y'all. The gentle words, the feeling that this beast would be able to love her no matter what she said or did, lapped Meg in warmth and peace. She felt, the feeling that this beast would be able to love her no matter what she said or did. Come on, unconditional love. Lapped Meg in warmth and peace. She felt a delicate touch of tentacle to her cheek, as tender as her mother's kiss. It is so long since my own small ones were grown and gone, the beast said. You are so tiny and vulnerable. Now I will feed you. You must eat slowly and quietly. I know that you are half starved, that you have been without food far too long, but you must not rush things or you will not get well. Something completely and indescribably and incredibly delicious was put to Meg's lips, and she swallowed gratefully. With each swallow, she felt strength returning to her body, and she realized that she had nothing to eat since the horrible fake turkey dinner on Kamazat's, which she had barely tasted. How long ago was her mother's stew? Time no longer had any meaning. Time no longer had any meaning. How long does night last here? She murmured sleepily. It will be day again, won't it? Hush, the beast said. Eat, small one. During the coolness, which is now, we sleep. And when you waken, there will be warmth again and many things to do. You must eat now and sleep, and I will stay with you. What should I call you, please? Meg asked. Well, now, first, try not to say any words for just a moment. Think within your own mind. Think of all things you call people, different kinds of people. While Meg thought, the beast murmured to her gently, no mother is a special, a one name, and father you have here, not just friend, nor teacher, nor brother, nor sister. What is acquaintance? What a funny hard word. Aunt? Maybe? Yes, perhaps that will do. And you think of such odd words about me, thing, and monster. Monster, what a horrid sort of word. I really do not think I am a monster. Beast? That will do. Aunt Beast. Oh, that's what was happening. So as she's thinking words, the beast was reading her mind and sifting through her. That is so crazy. Aunt Beast, Meg murmured sleepily and laughed. Have I said something funny? Aunt Beast asked in surprise. Isn't Aunt Beast all right? Aunt Beast is lovely, Meg said. Please sing to me, Aunt Beast. If it was as if it was impossible to describe sight to Aunt Beast, it would be even more impossible to describe the singing of Aunt Beast to a human being. It was a music even more glorious than the music of the singing creatures on Uriel. It was a music more tangible than form or sight. It had essence and structure. It supported Meg more firmly than the arms of Aunt Beast. It seemed to travel with her, to sweep her aloft in the power of song, so that she was moving in glory among the stars. And for a moment, she too felt the words darkness and light had no meaning. Come on. And only this melody was real. Only, my God, the only reason darkness and light have meaning here is because we give it to it. Come on. Meg did not know when she fell asleep within the body of the music. When she awakened, Aunt Beast was asleep too, the softness of her furry, faceless head drooping. Night had gone, and a dull gray light filled the room. But she realized now that here on this planet, there was no need for color, that the grays and browns merging into each other were not what the beast knew, and that what she herself saw was only the smallest fraction of what the planet was really like. It was she who was limited in her senses, not the blind beast. They must have senses of which she could not even dream. I'm telling you. Oh, she was tethered to her human abilities. Humanness is limited. I'm telling you. She stirred slightly, and Aunt Beast bent over her immediately. What a lovely sleep, my darling. Do you feel all right? I feel wonderful, Meg said. Aunt Beast, what is this planet called? Oh dear, Aunt Beast sighed. I find it not easy at all to put things the way your mind shapes them. You call where you came from Kamazats. Well, it's where we came from, but it's not our planet. You call us Ixkel, I guess, Aunt Beast told her. We share the same sun as lost Kamazats, but that, give thanks, is all we share. Are you fighting the black thing? Meg asked. Oh yes, Unbeast replied. In doing that we can never relax. We are the called according to his purpose, and whom he calls, them he also justifies. Of course, we have help, and without help, I would be much more difficult. It will be much more difficult. Listen, she says, Aunt B says, we are called according to his promise, and whom he calls, them he also justifies. I'm loving the sprinkles of scripture in here. Oh my God. Boy, man. Who helps you? Meg asks. Oh dear, it is so difficult to explain things to you, small one. And I know now that it is not just because you are a child. The other two are as hard to reach into as you are. What can I tell you that will mean anything to you? Good helps us. The stars helps us. Perhaps what you call light helps us. Love helps us. Oh, my child, I cannot explain. This is something you just have to know or not know. But we look not at the things which are what you call seen, but at the things which are not seen. For the things which are seen are temporal, but the things which are not seen are eternal. Come on, man. My goodness. Aunt Beast, do you know what's Mrs. What's It? Meg asked with a sudden flooding of hope. Mrs. What's It? Aunt Beast was puzzled. Oh, child, your language is so utterly simple and limited that it has the effect of extreme complication. Her forearms, tentacles waving, were outflung in a gesture of helplessness. Would you like me to take you to your father and Calvin? Oh, yes, please. Let us go then. They are waiting for you to make plans. And we thought you would enjoy eating. What is it you call it? Oh yes, breakfast together. You will be too warm in that heavy fur now. I will dress you in something lighter, and then we will go. As though Meg were a baby, Aunt Beast bathed and dressed her, and this new garment, though it was made of pale fur, was lighter than the lightest summer clothes on earth. Aunt Beast put one tentacle arm about Meg's waist and led her through long, dim corridors in which she could see only shadows and shadows of shadows until they reached a large column chamber. Shafts of light came in from an open skylight and converged about a huge round stone table. Here were seated several of the great beasts and Calvin and Mr. Murry on a stone bench that circled the table. Because the beasts were so tall, even Mr. Murray's feet did not touch the ground, and lanky Calvin's long legs dangled as though he were Charles Wallace. The hall was partially enclosed by vaulted arches leading to long paved walks. There were no empty walls, no covering roofs, so that although the light was dull in comparison to Earth sunlight, Meg had no feeling of dark or of chill. As Unbeast led Meg in, Mr. Murry slid down from the bench and hurried to her, putting his arms around her tenderly. They promised us you were all right, he said. While she had been in Aunt Beast's arms, Meg had felt safe and secure. Now her worries about Charles Wallace and her disappointment in her father's human fallibility rose like gorge in her throat. I'm fine, she muttered, looking not at Calvin or her father, but at the beast, for it was to them she turned now for help. It seemed to her, and neither her father nor Calvin was properly concerned about Charles Wallace. Meg, Calvin said gaily, you've never tasted such food in your life. Come and eat. Beast lifted Meg onto the bench and sat down beside her, then heaped a plate with food, strange fruits and breads that tasted unlike anything Meg had ever eaten. Everything was dull and colorless and unappetizing to look at, and at first, even remembering the meal Beast had fed her the night before, Meg hesitated to taste. But once she had managed the first bite, she ate eagerly. It seemed that she would never have her feel again. The others waited until she slowed down. Then Mr. Murry said gravely, we were trying to work out a plan to rescue Charles Wallace. Since I had such a mistake in tethering away from it, we feel that it would not be wise for me to try to get back to Kamazat's even alone. If I missed the mark again, I could easily get lost and wander forever from galaxy to galaxy, and that would be small help to anyone, least at all Charles Wallace. Such a wave of despondency came over Meg that she was no longer able to eat. Our friends here, he continued, feel that it was only the fact that I still wore glasses your Mrs. Who gave you that kept me within this solar system. Here are the glasses, Meg, but I'm afraid that the virtue has gone from them and now they are only glasses. Perhaps they were meant to help only once and only on Kamazats. Perhaps it was going through the black thing that did it. He pushed the glasses across the table at her. These people know about tessering. Calvin gestured at the circle of great beasts, but they can't do it onto a dark planet. Have you tried to call Mrs. Whatsit? Meg asked. Not yet, her father answered. But if you haven't thought of anything else, it's the only thing to do. Father, don't you care about Charles at all? At that, Aunt B stood up, saying, child, in a reproving way. Mr. Murry said nothing, and Meg could see that she had wounded him deeply. She reacted as she would have reacted to Mr. Jenkins. She scolded down the table, saying, we've got to ask them for help now. You're just stupid if you think we don't. Beast spoke to the others. The child is distraught. Don't judge her harshly. She was almost taken by the black thing. Sometimes we can't know what spiritual damage it leaves, even when physical recovery is complete. Come on. My God. Ooh. Sometimes we can't know what spiritual damage it leaves, even when physical recovery is complete. How many of us are walking around physically looking like we are okay, but are spiritually damaged because we have allowed ourselves to be taken by the black thing, the evil, the hovering energy that's on this planet? My goodness, today. My God. Meg looked angrily around the table. The beast sat there silent, motionless. She felt that she was being measured and found wanting. Calvin swung away from her and hunched himself up. Hasn't it occurred to you that we've been trying to tell them about our ladies? What do you think we've been up to all this time? Just stuffing our faces? Okay, you have a shot at it. Yes, try, child. Unbe seated against her, seated herself again and pulled Meg up beside her. But I do not understand this feeling of anger I sense in you. What is it about? There is blame going on and guilt. Why? Unbeast, don't you know? No, Unbeast said, but this is not telling me anything. Whoever they are, you want us to know. Try. Meg tried, blunderingly, fumblingly. At first, she described Mrs. Whatsit and her man's coat and multicolored shawls and scarves. Mrs. Who in her white robes and shimmering spectacles. Mrs. Witch in her peaked cap and black gown, quivering in and out of body. Then she realized that this was absurd. She was describing them only to herself. This wasn't Mrs. Whatsit or Mrs. Who or Mrs. Witch. She might as well have described Mrs. Whatsit as she was when she took on the form of the flying creature of Uriel. Exactly. Don't try to use words, Unbe said soothingly. You're just fighting yourself and me. Think about what you are. This look doesn't help us at all. They tried again, but she could not get a visual concept out of her mind. She tried to think of Mrs. Whatsit explaining tessering. She tried to think of them in terms of mathematics. Every once in a while, she thought she felt a flicker of understanding from Aunt Beast or one of the others, but most of the time, all that emanated from them was gentle puzzlement. Angels, Calvin shouted suddenly from across the table. Guardian angels. There was a moment's silence, and he shouted again, his face tense with concentration. Messengers, messengers of God. I thought for a moment, Miss Unby started, then subsided, sighing. No, it's not clear again. How strange it is that they can't tell us what they themselves seem to know. A tall, thin beast murmured. Wow. One of Aunt Beast's tentacled arms went around Meg's waist again. They are very young, and on their Earth, as they call it, they never communicate with other planets. They resolve about all alone in space. Oh, the thin beast said, aren't they lonely? Suddenly, a thundering voice reverberated throughout the great hall. We are here. Oh, wow. Okay, so Mrs. Witch and Mrs. Ooh. Kim said, that's good. Your sight can hinder your vision. Yes. Ooh, baby. Baby. I posted, I made a post about that a couple years ago. Kim said, I caught that. Baby, do you hear me? This is why it is very, very important for us, you all, to always stay in a childlike state, not childish, childlike, so that your imagination can allow you to transcend the limitations of your thinking, of your brain ability, of this limitation of the human body. We have to be able to transcend that, and only imagination can do that for us. Only imagination can do that for us. That's why I said before we started reading this book, open your imagination. Listen to this book from your inner child self, and allow your present day self to grab the nuggets, to gain the wisdom. But you have to allow your inner child's ears and eyes to be able to envision everything that this book is describing. When I tell you there is nuggets, it's nuggets on top of nuggets on top of nuggets in this thing, man. Ooh wee, my God. I love it here. Do you hear me? I love it here. So the next time we come together, you all, will be Sunday, and we will begin with chapter 12. We're going to be going into 12 and 13. Honestly, you all, the book, I think it only has like 14 chapters. So we're almost done for real. Ooh, my goodness. I love it. 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 Listen, if you do not have this book, first of all, I don't know what you're waiting on, because this book is offered to you free of charge. I do not charge for the publications that we read. It is free of charge to you. You can get your ebook version. It is coming in a Google Drive. Google Drive file. So you'll get your ebook version. That way you can read along with me, or you can read along by yourself. You can do whatever you need to do. I love it when the friends come about. You know what I'm saying? What's the song? It ain't no fun if the homies can't have none. I love when we come together and listen together and read it together. Because trust me, I've never read this book outside of you. I only read what I read to you. So as I'm getting it, you getting it too. That's why I have to interrupt. I have to stop and get my nuggets, man, because I'm picking them up, baby. I'm picking them up and applying them. Yes, ma'am, honey. But to receive your own copy, get your copy. Like I said, free of charge. Yes, I am a nonprofit. Yes, I am a 501c3. Yes, 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 you can donate, but it is not required. It's welcome. It's not required. Okay. Get your book, because I want you to join us and have this in your library. All right. So send me an email. Okay. Send me an email requesting your copy at info@biancamissbeely.com. And that is info@biancamissbeely.com. For those who want to see what it is that I do, you want to take advantage of my services, any type of coursework that I have for you, any type of learn about the transits and things like that, astrological transits, please go and visit the website. Go there on Clubhouse. It's right above your head. Go ahead and click that above my head, and it'll take you straight there. Everywhere else, it's on the screen, okay? Visit me, you all, BiancaMissBeLee.com, okay? Also, follow me on social media, you all, on all platforms, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, all of the places, Clubhouse. It is Bianca, Dr. Bianca Miss B. Lee. Dr. Bianca Miss B. Lee, okay? You don't want to miss it. I put out some good stuff. You don't want to miss it. All right, you all, listen. If you're on TikTok, go to TikTok. Okay. I'm also on TikTok as well. Dr. Bianca Miss B. Lee. We have segments on Tuesday night at 11, Thursday night at 11. Every week we have some, it's called the Talk with Doc. The Talk with Doc. Okay. We have conversations. We chat for a couple hours. Interactive. I bring you on the platform. You share your piece. We have a question on the table. You know what I'm saying? And we just talk, we interact, and we learn and grow and build. We laugh, we love, we share. It's a good time, okay? So join us on the Talk with Doc, all right? Like I said, Tuesday nights 11, Thursday nights at 11, all right? Eastern Standard Time, okay? Eastern Standard Time. That is 10 o'clock Central, and I believe that is 8 o'clock, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, 8 o'clock Pacific, okay? Alrighty, so join me. Don't miss it. Don't what's he as bad as to say? Don't meet me there. Beat me there, okay? Follow me on those platforms. All right, you all. Listen, I told you I don't want to keep you long tonight, and I'm gonna keep my word. Stay tuned. Sunday, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here, Divine Femininity United. I love you. I mean it. There is absolutely, positively nothing, and I mean nothing that you can do about it. Don't you even try it. It will not work, okay? I will talk to you soon. Talk to you on Sunday. If you're going to be joining me on the Talk with Doc, join me tonight. I'll see you there. Until then, we'll see you next time. Peace.